Greetings, fellow humans. You are listening to America's most human and definitely not alien fungus podcast, The Pod People. I am Matisse Van Rossum, and I am boolin' with my slimes.
I am not Ben Sheets. I am Ben Plus Plus.
Hello, I am not Cleveland Mosier, and I am pansexual. Oh shit, I'm showing emotion. Oh no, don't get me! Ah!
Fuck! Well, our disguise is given away. It turns out we are not the emotionless alien creatures that we pretended to be.
Thank God.
Yeah, well, it is episode 2 of our 5-year Podiversary, our celebration of 5 years of this exquisite podcast.
And what a wet fart of a movie to review for it.
Well, you know, sometimes it happens. You know, our typical format for the Podiversaries is to do original versus remake, and often the remake is bad. And you know that sort of holds true for our second episode here.
Shit.
Did you think of a joke that you wish you had said a few minutes ago?
No, I'm just dying over how shitty this movie was.
Yeah.
Hey, man.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but fuck, man, it's awful.
No one took it in their intros, but Puke Gang. I got a
Gang.
rep for the homies. I guess you did say Slime Season.
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
Well, you know, we also got a rep for our postmodernist feminists that didn't exist 500 years ago.
Oh, man.
Shout out to the real ones.
What a movie.
Well,
sorry, as you were saying, Tease, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
For...
Well,
fucking movie.
Well, a couple of years ago, obviously, for our Podiversary, we did an original versus remake of Invasion of the Body Snatchers, and this year, in the year of the sequel, we are covering the 2 other remakes of that same story. Last week, we did the 90s film Body Snatchers by Abel Ferrara, a flawed but pretty interesting film that I think we generally enjoyed.
I like it.
But this week,
We did Guy Ritchie's Snatch.
again with that joke. It's
Golden
never funny or it's never funny or pertinent. But here we are again. No, this week we covered the
Guy Ritchie's
the most recent adaptation of Jack Finney's novel, The Body Snatchers. We're talking about 2007's The Invasion.
Yeah. And, you know, I have a lot of thoughts about this movie, but I just wanted to mention, like, I wish the third movie in the trilogy hadn't been stuck in development hell for so long, because I really wanted to see of the...
Well, there's still possibilities for a future of the film, isn't there? Yeah, well, where to start with this movie? It was bad.
Bad, stinky.
Didn't
like it.
Yeah,
it has
fucking
faded
doo-doo.
into obscurity for good reason.
For shit.
It made Abel Ferrara movie look like a subtle masterpiece in comparison.
Jesus, yeah.
What I'm going to argue, actually, is that this movie is, in fact, the purest version of the story, because it is a simulacrum of a film. It has all of the correct parts of a film. It looks like a film from the outside, but once you get acquainted with it, it's actually soulless and devoid of life or creativity or artistry. Mm-hmm. Much like the Pod People.
So it's a true pod movie.
Yeah, it's the perfect way you could tell this story, by making it generic and boring and soulless. And they did it. And it's got a couple of good actors in it, but not a good acting to be found.
Yeah. I will say it was odd in 2022, post-COVID, to see such an anti-vaxxer movie.
But it has like a positive vax message at the end. Vaccines do save the day. They just dump them out of helicopters, though. Spoilers for the end of this dumb fucking movie.
I think the message of this film is a little bit confused. I don't think it really has one. I do think in a lot of ways, incidentally or otherwise, it does sort of portray itself as like an anti-vax kind of film. It has tinges of what I would consider right-wing reactionism, but undeveloped in such a way that I'm unconvinced that they're intentionally there, or if we're just reading into something I
think we were just like trying really hard to like get anything out of this movie because it was a big piece of shit.
Yeah, I will say one of my favorite scenes in the movie is right at the beginning. We see a really terrible spaceship crash, CG spaceship,
a CG space shuttle. Yeah,
they cut to newsreel footage, and
or like news fake footage.
Oh, fake news footage.
Damn.
It is CNN after all.
Oh, Jesus.
The liberal media.
They cut to a sheriff, and he's like, yeah, we gotta make sure no one touches it, because it could be contaminated. And then it cuts to, like, an old rednecky lady, and was like, yeah, we stopped, and we touched it.
Yeah, we did touch it a little bit. There's some stuff in this movie that could almost be played for comedy, but the movie takes itself so seriously that you know it's not like supposed to be. That's a good example.
It's too 2007-y with like the blue filter all over everything, and they're just taking everything so serious.
That's the thing about it, though. Like, it almost works at times as, like, so bad it's good because it has a lack of self-awareness.
Almost.
Like, Nicole Kidman slamming a 2-liter of Mountain Dew, or, like, the waiters just puking into the coffee at the CDC headquarters.
Yes.
Those are very funny elements, and I think if they were more self-aware with it, it wouldn't work. It's because, like, it's so self-serious that is funny.
But there's still not enough of it for the movie as a whole to really be funny.
Yeah.
There's like those glimpses. Like we were kind of talking throughout the movie, like, I think Ben, you posed the question early on, like, are they going to do your typical Body Snatchers point and scream moment? And at a certain point we realized no, they're definitely not, because the movie obviously takes itself so seriously that it considers itself above something like that. Like, it has
above
to
having
be
fun.
Right, above having any sort of fun. And, like, fun aside, like, in the 70s movie, the pointing and screaming is creepy, right?
It's scary and fun,
But, like, this movie it feels this weird need to be, like, a more grounded telling of the story, and in so doing, it's just a more boring telling of the story with less substance. Because, like, there's no actual pods in this movie. Like, the replacement people, like, it's an alien virus now, or it's like a fungus that comes in on the space shuttle that crashes and spreads by spores or whatever. But there's no actual, like, putting the pods near people while they're sleeping, and then, like, the tentacles coming out and, like, invading their bodies and transforming them.
Shit.
No, it's just if they fall asleep after somebody has puked in their mouth, then they get real slimy for a little while, and then they wake up and they're pod people. But I mean, can't even call them pod people because there's no fucking pods. There's no pods in this movie.
No. Which is good.
Lack of pods.
Good. We don't have to consider it a pod movie. Thank God. Yeah, I'm here for it. They take away all the fun shit, and we're left with a hollow shell of a movie, and it sucks. There's some kind of fun, like, action sequences, but that's not really what I go into a film like this, like, wanting or expecting.
No, I mean, by the end, it turns into, like, your typical 2000s kind of action thriller. And, like, I guess the car chase at the end is, like, kind of fun, like when they throw the Molotov cocktail on the windshield, and Nicole Kidman is, like, peeling through the streets of DC with, like, the car on fire. That's, like, kind of fun, but it's so overstated for this of story. I think.
Mean, like, I do like the sequence when there's a bunch of pod people so to speak, on the car.
Yeah, we'll call him that for convenience.
Yeah, on the car, and she has to, like, shake him off by, like, crashing the car into different things.
Oh, and flings them through the big glass windows of the storefront.
That was fun, but that feels like straight out of, like, a zombie movie, more so than an invasion movie.
Yep, check the date, 2007.
Yeah. That's the thing is, like, the earlier movies are, especially the first two, are like very much products of the Cold War and the Red Scare, and you know the fear of an invading force disguising itself as your neighbors and, you know, insidiously replacing you with a commie version of yourself, you know. And it's like, this comes out in 2007. It's an American movie. There's like slight hints to or references to like the war on terror, just because you have to in a post 9/11 American movie.
That's the thing. I think this movie is more right wing than any past one.
Yeah, I agree.
Because
I
think,
do. Yeah.
Like, that threat, you know, mentioning war on terror, war on Iraq, is the threat of Islamic collectivism almost. And like, that's kind of the metaphor they're trying to mold here. And that's even more insidious.
Even beyond that, I think the one that seemed really clear to me is the idea that like war makes us human, like, and that war is necessary. That's what struck me as kind of right wing. I mean, that's sort of how the movie. That's exactly how the movie ends. Daniel Craig is reading about more war in the newspaper, and you know, she harkens back to like, oh yeah,
she has the memory of the very clunky conversation with the Russian diplomat earlier in the movie. He's like, if you do not turn on the news and see the war, then you know that we are not humans anymore. It's like, okay, cool. So war is how we know that we're human. And got it. And American, right?
Yeah, great. Cool.
That's the funny thing is because the director of this movie is not American. It's a dude named Oliver Hirschbiegel, who is a German filmmaker. The only other like really notable movie he's directed is Downfall, the Hitler movie with Bruno Ganz. This movie was written by, I think, an American guy, David Kajganik, who, interestingly, I noticed, also wrote the screenplay for a new movie that we're going to be covering later in the year, the new Luca Guadagnino film, Bones and All.
Oh.
He wrote the screenplay for that.
Not good.
Well, I mean, they've had, like...
Well, here's the thing, and I know this won't mean much to you, Ben, because you didn't like the movie, but he did also write the script for Guadagnino's Suspiria remake, which I do like a lot.
That's why it's shitty.
Yeah.
He's in like the one with
Tilda Swinton and
I really
Dakota
like
Johnson.
movie.
Yeah, me too.
The bad one.
Yeah.
No, it's a good one. It's a good movie.
It's a good movie, but the thing about that is, once again, like, that's over a decade later. I mean, like...
Yeah, this movie came out 15 years ago, sure.
Yeah, and I mean, like, the guy who wrote The Hangover 2 also did Chernobyl, so...
Yes, exactly, and is the showrunner for The Last of Us show that's coming out next year. Yeah, Craig Mazin's back. He's trying to do a serious HBO film or series again.
While we're talking about Craig Mazin real quick, did y'all watch the trailer? Because I think it looks pretty good.
It looks like The Last of Us.
It does.
I didn't watch the trailer.
And I like that. I like The Last of Us, so I'm kind of excited about it. Anyway, enough about that. But
it's an HBO prestige drama. It could be good.
Yeah.
HBO, you know.
You do those good, usually.
Chernobyl was good.
Yeah, video game adaptations.
Yeah, that's always a thing.
Yeah, but, like, it's already an adaptation of, like, The Road and shit. I think that, like, The Last of Us is already trying really hard to be, like, an HBO drama. I think it'll fit in fine.
Yeah. Well, that's what I've seen a lot of people say is, like, the game is already basically like a series, is basically like a movie. It's so cinematic, like, why make the show at all to begin with? And it's like,
why not?
Well... I agree, like, why not? And also, like, some people don't play video games. It's not their thing, you know? If they can do a good adaptation and give the same story to people who are not gamers, fine, good, whatever. But anyway, back to the bad movie. What should we talk about next? The terrible acting?
Let's start at the very top, because we fast forwarded to the spaceship a little bit, but the movie before that, we start with Nicole Kidman in a pharmacy, chugging Mountain Dew, going over looking through the countertops, trying to find
all the uppers.
Trying to find all the uppers. She's got to stay awake. And then something happens, and we cut to the spaceship.
Yeah.
And it's quickly revealed that was obviously a flash forward.
Right.
And
we'll get there later in the movie.
What happens to Nicole Kidman in that sequence? So,
can we talk about the CDC guy?
Oh yeah. So the space shuttle has crashed, and a CDC guy comes out of his car, and he's like walking over, and he goes into the big tent that they have set up, the hazmat zone.
The
NASA tent. And we get our first bit of, like, 2000s era, like, science babble.
Exposition.
Yeah. But, it's very reminiscent of that era, and I had forgotten about this, but, like, during that time, it was, like, really popular in like to have, like, dumb guy movies where, like, at one point the scientist, like, says just, like, a string of science words to make the movie feel smarter.
This
than it
happens
actually is.
multiple times in
this movie. This movie has that
this movie's
bad.
full
Such
of that.
a bad tendency to do.
Yeah,
and it's like stupid stuff, bad writing, and then at some point someone just sits down and says, "This is a smart movie because the cerebral hemorrhaging of the cortex of the whatever," and it's like, okay, well, you looked up some words in a thesaurus, or you got a scientist to like help you write this one part. Like,
that's one of the things that I like about the previous adaptations of this story is that the science is not really important. They keep the invaders feeling alien because, like, okay, we know that they're plant-based because they have these pods that put out vines, and while you're sleeping they like copy your consciousness and replace you, and then your real body like disintegrates. How does any of this stuff happen? Not important. It just happens, and it's scary. How does it work? It's unknowable.
It happens so fast we don't have time.
I would contend that that's part of the thing that makes it scary.
Yes.
Is that it's an alien thing. It's something that we can't immediately understand.
It's an alien thing that has infected us before we can do anything about it. That's what's
Before
right.
we
It's
can
already
truly
it's
understand
already
it.
too late. Yeah.
Exactly. And so by having us understand it as it's happening, and also by, I've already spoiled it, by inevitably having it so that we are able to vaccinate it or whatever, or get rid of it, stupid as shit.
Yeah.
Like, just undermines the whole point that makes it scary. And frankly, like, that's the whole thing about the Body Snatchers. Like, it takes people you love, it turns them into something else. It's already done it. It's too late. You can't do anything
By the
about
time
it.
you notice that anything's wrong, it's already too late.
Right.
That's the overarching thing of the last three adaptations of this movie, is it's not about trying to stop it. It's about trying to retain your individuality and not become one of them. There is no way to stop it. It's too late.
And if you remove that, what do you have?
And this movie is all
Doo-doo.
about, this movie is like many similar movies of the 2000s, is about how do we use science to stop the thing.
Gotta find the cure.
I just
Gotta find
think-
the
How
cure.
do we find the cure?
I think about Jennifer Tilly's monologue. Where are you gonna run?
Meg Tilly?
Meg Tilly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I get them mixed up a lot. They're sisters, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
They're Tillies.
They're both great. But her monologue, where are you gonna run? Where are you gonna hide?
Right.
In this movie, they have a lot of places to run.
They do-
have a lot of places
Nicole-
they end up hiding.
Nicole Kidman does a lot of running and hiding in this movie. Yeah.
And there's not a sense of dread like that
No.
movie had,
Well, yeah, because they do a terrible job of making these crowds scary.
Yes.
And, like, crowds are
it's
inevitably
always
kind of spooky.
It's always funny. Whenever, like, when she's driving on the highway or whatever, and the car pulls up behind her, and you can see that there's like 5 people in the car, and they're all just like turned and staring at her, and like it's supposed to be scary, but no, it's funny. Every single time they do one of those in this movie, I chuckled, or I snorted. Gave me one of those.
Meanwhile, in the 70s one, they're, like, roaring like pigs.
Yeah.
And they're, like, chasing them down dark alleyways with, like, the blue lights and the smoke, and everything feels wrong and alien, and, like the light on Earth feels wrong in the 70s movie.
Yeah.
It really does feel like the environment has somehow been corrupted, too. And, like, that's There's nothing like that.
Well, and like in the 90s one, which we covered last week, like having it set on the military base, there's sort of always that question of who is a pod person and who isn't, because it's hard to distinguish the emotionless affect of a pod person with just like the military discipline of a soldier. And there is kind of that like, who is and who isn't. And this movie is like really unambiguous about like who has been replaced, just because they lean so heavily into the invaders just having like zero emotional affect at all. Instead of just being stoic, it's like they coached them to be bad actors.
Yeah.
And I feel like that kind of undercuts it for me, because it's like the pod people are emotionless, yes, and you blend in by not showing emotion, but they don't come across as like hokey bad actors.
It feels like a Simpsons episode.
It's like the whole thing is that like
the
they are
like, oh, the Simpsons are doing the pod people in this episode, and it's funny. Like that's what they're going for. Like whenever they pick up the phone, it's like, hi, yes, this is my new. I love my big house. Like that kind of stuff. Like
that's the thing is like that's the thing about the pod people is that, or how they should be portrayed, is that they are good enough at simulating humanity that only the ones who are closest to them would recognize that they're not who they say they are. That like you couldn't, if you just ran into a stranger on the street, you wouldn't be able to discern that they were a pod person unless you know that person intimately. But yeah, all of the invaders in this one are like, yes, well, I want to see my son because I miss him. Bring him over to my house, please.
Yeah, I will say...
Do you want to come inside and have a cup of hot chocolate? Nothing sinister about that here, I swear.
I will say the one time in this movie that I feel like that works is, you know, Nicole Kidman, our main protagonist, is a psychiatrist.
Yes.
And she has a client that comes in worried about her husband not acting like her husband. Mm-hmm. And I think that subplot actually, like, does that pretty well with just her kind of talking about what it's like. And then later in the movie, her husband shows up at the office, the psychiatrist office, and she's, like, on the street. And she runs immediately when she discovers that he's there.
Yeah.
And I think, like, that sort of slow burn exposition is what this movie needed. Like, I think that's what works so well in the other movies, where this movie, it just immediately jumps to everything is wrong.
Well, yeah, well,
it sucks too, because like that side plot also like resolves horribly with her being like carted away by the police randomly. Like Nicole Kidman just happens to be running down the same street, and she's also on in like DC, and the cops grab her patient, and she shouts to no one in particular, "Oh, I already fell asleep and it didn't work," and then they drag her away. And it's like, all right, like that was.
Well, yeah, I think they're telling her is like, oh, come away and fall asleep. She's like, no, I already fell asleep. It already happened, but obviously it didn't because
it's just
she's
like hammering you over the head with exposition.
Well,
it's
yeah,
like,
well, and here's the thing too, is that like I agree with where you're coming from, but I don't necessarily agree with it in execution in this film, because while on paper that sort of subplot about her coming in and talking about like her husband not being her husband and how he's different is like good, but what that scene reminded me of, there's something about this actress, she's not very good. She reminds me of the mother character in The Room.
Yeah,
that scene,
same thing, yeah.
That scene I could not stop thinking.
I had cancer.
Yeah, it's like, so I got the results of the test back. I definitely have breast cancer. Like, it's the whole time she's telling the story about, like, the dog not liking her husband.
Yeah.
And then she totally buries the lead about her husband killing the dog.
Yeah.
Like, that's another thing that I found frustrating about that scene is, like, she's like, my husband's not my husband. You know, usually I'm afraid of him because he's abusive, but now I'm afraid of him because he talks different and he looks different and like this whole thing. And then she's like, oh yeah, also the dog recognized that it wasn't him. Well, what happened with the dog? Oh, well, he killed the dog and threw it in the garbage can. It's like, I would open with that. Yeah. I would come and be like, something is wrong with my husband. It's not my husband. I watched him murder our dog last night and I'm terrified. Yeah. Like, that is how you open. You don't bury the lead on the killing the dog part.
Yeah.
Like,
well, that's a very good point. I think it was good in concept and implication.
Yeah.
Because I feel like this movie needed more implication and more slow burn.
Yeah.
Where this movie just jumps into it, and it's worse for it.
Nicole Kidman's ex-husband in this film is the CDC guy we see at the beginning. He's talking to the scientists, and they're like, yeah, the space shuttle that crashed, the debris is covered in this strange fungus, and it has all of the qualities of a spore. And
yeah, they explain it in the first 5 minutes.
It's like a spore, my God. And then he's walking back to his car, and a little girl runs up to him and is like, here, this piece of the space shuttle landed on our roof. And you can see she's holding it, and it is covered in this fungus that he has just been told is like some alien organism that can survive the frigid temperature of space and the extreme heat of re-entry of the space shuttle. And he takes it from her with his bare hand and cuts himself on it.
And then drops it and walks away.
And then drops it and walks away. So he's obviously like one of the first ones that we see infected. But my point in all of that is that, like, the film, like, so heavy-handedly makes it be obvious that he's infected, like, immediately, is that, like, after that, you know, he goes home and goes to bed and whatever, and the next scene is, like, Nicole Kidman getting a call from him, and he's like, hello, ex-wife. I am back in Washington, D.C., in our old house. It is such a nice house. I would like to see our son, please.
You know,
Jesus fucking
it makes me realize there's a combination here in this movie that is probably my least favorite tendency in cinema as a whole, and that's self-seriousness matched with dumbing it down.
Ooh.
Paired together.
Wow.
You know? Because it just ends up pretentious. Because you have a dumb movie because it's trying to dumb it down to the common denominator. But also, it thinks of itself, you know, very seriously.
It's stupid, but it feels like it has to explain how smart it is to you.
It's just condescending.
Yeah, it is condescending.
Yeah.
I agree.
And, like, I think the charm of the Abel Ferrara one is it's self-serious to an extent, but it doesn't talk down to the audience.
No, not at all.
You know, I think having one or the other is fine. You know, dumbing it down and making it campy, that's fine.
Perfectly valid.
Yeah, but being self-serious on top of that just doesn't work. And I think, like, this movie is far too self-serious as a whole. Like, it gets very up its ass about, I think, with the pseudoscience and just the way it's structured.
Well, yeah. While you mentioned the pseudoscience, I think that's a good opportunity for us to talk more about that, because we've already talked about Nicole Kidman's patient, who, you know, she later sees being dragged away, being like, I already slept, but she's obviously not changed. So that's when Nicole Kidman starts to think, maybe there's an maybe she's immune somehow.
Yeah, and Cleveland was guessing what the immunity was throughout the movie.
Yeah, well before there was any implication that there would be one, I might add.
Well,
but like
in a movie
I clocked
like this,
yeah, and I clocked it early. I said like very, very early into the film, like I would say first like 15 or so minutes, I said like, "Hey, wait a minute. Do you guys think that this movie is dumb enough to like actually have them save the day at the end?"
This one's gonna be the one where they're able to stop it.
Yeah, and like there's gonna be an immune. And I said, "Oh, what if it's them?" Because like also like her and Daniel Craig and the son all have like really bright blue eyes in the movie. And I know that they just naturally have those.
The son's eyes are dark.
Yeah,
but
like,
the patient who she's
that's
talking
right, yeah.
to,
She also has bright
very
blue eyes.
very blue
and
eyes.
again, like the movie is also just like has like that blue like color corrective like tint over the whole thing. So I think it just brought it out, but. Like, it felt like they were drawing attention to it. But the other thing they drew attention to regularly, like, I called it every time they brought it up, was, like, the pills that the kid was taking. Because, like, she was like, "Oh, you gotta take your pills." You know, I put them on clozapam again. And then, like, the Russian guy at the little event or whatever was, like, talking about, like, how, if there was just a magic pill that could do whatever. So I thought, like, that was going to be it, too. But then it turns out that
ends up, I don't know if it's supposed to be a red herring, but it does have zero payoff. Because, like, there are a lot of references to, like, clonazepam. I don't know clonazepam. Like, I don't know drugs, but, like...
It's an antidepressant.
The kid is taking it to, like, help him sleep, and we see Nicole Kidman, like, looking for it.
I think.
Yeah.
That's why he takes it, because he's having nightmares.
Yeah. Because there's Klonopin, which is something different, but this is clonazepam. Clozapam. Whatever. Fucking pharmaceuticals are confusing. But there is, like, this one specific drug that they keep mentioning. The kid's taking it. In the beginning, when we see her in the pharmacy, she's, like, looking for it specifically. We see later when she and Daniel Craig are looking at, like, her patient's files to try to figure out why she's immune, that she was taking it. But that ultimately has nothing to do with it. They don't have a moment where it's like, oh, this pill, for whatever reason, slows the spread of the virus or whatever. No, what the immunity turns out to be that, like, there's, like, a specific strain of, like, chicken pox or something like that, meningitis or whatever, that does something in the brain that makes it impossible for the alien bacteria to... Yeah.
Nothing that's like, shown, just garble.
Yeah, it's like EDEM.
Yeah, that's what they call it. And, like, Daniel Craig, while, like, they're discovering that, like, he has a monologue where he's, like, puzzling it out. It is incomprehensible.
Totally incoherent.
It is incomprehensible, like, medical science babble. Like, I could not follow what he was saying at all. And
I think that's intentional.
Yeah, because it is pseudoscience. Yeah. But that's also where it's like, okay, so some people, and yeah, the Nicole Kidman's patient, she had a bad case of that as a child and it almost killed her. And just so happened that her son also had it, and that's why he's immune.
You know, it's like hyper chickenpox. So, like, the assumption is if you had the vaccine for chickenpox, you'd be susceptible.
That's one of the reasons why it feels like the film is taking, like, an anti-vax kind of stance.
Yeah.
Because, the more like heavy-handed one that we haven't even mentioned yet is that since her ex-husband works at the CDC and he's infected, their plan, the invaders' plan, is to be like, oh, we've discovered this new strain of the flu and it's super deadly, so we want to make sure that everybody gets their flu vaccine this year to make sure that they don't get the bad flu, but the alien virus is in the vaccine. So all of the sheeple who are lining up to get the vaccine because the government tells them to do so, they're handing themselves over to the invaders without even knowing it. So
that
when you
is aged like fucking
so
milk.
when you so when you have that combined with the immunity comes from getting a virus that we also have a vaccine for, then it starts to come across as that, like, if you get vaccines, you're gonna be one of the people who gets replaced in the invasion, and only the people who didn't take the vaccines are gonna be the ones who survive. And again, the film doesn't take like an obvious enough stance on it to know whether that's intentional or it's just our post-COVID, well, not really post-COVID, but our post-pandemic reading of it. But I agree with you, it has aged like fucking milk. Like, it is.
And as Cleveland mentioned before, like, they saved the day with a vaccine at the end.
Yeah.
That they like spray into the air and stuff. And it's
chemtrails.
Chemtrails.
They saved the day with chemtrails.
Chemicals in the water. They're turning the freaking frogs back out of being pod people.
Yeah, they saved the day by dispersing the vaccine via chemtrails at the end.
And it's a weird turn that the movie does that was so baffling to me that I was like, wait, earlier in the movie they had a quote-unquote vaccine that was bad.
That's why I'm saying it's like I can't tell quite what the stance the film is actually taking.
I almost thought the vaccine, quote-unquote, at the end was gonna be the pod people fake vaccine.
Yeah, that they somehow made a fake vaccine that made the virus stronger or something.
Oh, no, see, don't you understand? Maybe they did. It's an ambiguous ending. This movie.
Yeah, maybe they manipulated the vaccine, so they made it so that the pod people actually can mimic emotion, so they're even more of a perfect recreation. But then they're just people. Yeah, no, that's stupid. That's game theory that we're doing. But
one thing we learn in this movie, it's pod people hate playing the PSP.
Oh.
Okay, so like that's the
they never let that kid play the PSP.
The hardcore like open sponsors in this movie too. The Mountain Dew, the Pepsi, the PSP. It's like
they for sure had a Pepsi sponsorship.
Yeah, definitely a PSP
because we see Sony definitely gave them some
my
money.
joke was that the PSP failed because they spent all their marketing budget on the invasion, which I feel like fucking hilarious.
But yeah, the Pepsi sponsorship is very obvious because of multiple times that Nicole Kidman is chugging Pepsi products, which is confusing, but
Pepsi keeps you awake. There you go.
Yeah, all that sugar, because like it doesn't actually have that much caffeine in it. It gives you the buzz because of the sugar. But what else about the boring movie?
What y'all think of Daniel Craig?
It's fine.
I mean, I guess.
Serviceable?
Yeah, the script is bad, so like, yeah, serviceable for what he was working with, I suppose.
Honestly, kind of forgettable.
Like his character didn't really do anything.
Yeah. I will say, in terms of the acting in this movie, I feel like Nicole Kidman was kind of carrying the whole movie on her shoulders.
Sure.
Yeah.
In terms of acting chops.
In terms of acting, yes, she had a really bad script to work with, and a lot of the characters in this movie, but her character in particular, had a case of dumb bitch syndrome.
Oh my god, yeah.
So, like,
we didn't talk about the CDC guy. Like, so we talked about, like, how he picks up the thing, like, pokes himself with it, and instead of walking right back into the hazmat facility...
Be like, I'm infected, guys, help!
Hey, guys, you need someone to look at...
Help, I touched it with my bare hands like an idiot! I should know better than this, I work for the CDC!
He gets in the car and goes home and doesn't think anything of it. Weird. But when he gets home, at the very beginning, we also see his girlfriend, like, or wife or whatever, like, sitting on the couch. He's surrounded by, like, an orgy of Chinese food, which was weird. Been
waiting on him so long that she ordered takeout 6 times.
It's so weird. It looks like that, though, right? Like, it's weird. Anyway, and she's watching the news and sees the shuttle crash, and she's like, "Where have you been?" And he's like, "Shuttle crash." And
he's like, "I've been
while
working,
it's on the TV, and she was like, "Well, all right, well, we can stay up or whatever." And he was like, "No, I need to get to bed because I got to go right back out there in like a couple hours." And she's like, well, you could have called and let me know.
You could have told me. Well,
And it's like, my dude has been, like, working,
bitch,
like...
who do you think I work for? Like,
It's like, you're watching the news, you see what I'm out there doing. Well, and the stupid shit, too, is that we see after that when she's going to bed, we see the clock as she's, like, laying down in bed, and it is almost 5 a.m. at this point. Like, so she was really up all night eating Chinese food, watching the news, waiting for him to come home, so they could watch the news together.
It was all in one night. She just kept ordering Chinese food.
Because that's the thing.
Into the night.
That's the thing, too, is, like, it presents itself like she was waiting up for him because she wanted to bang or something, but when he walks in, she's like, do you want to watch this together or not? And he's like, no, I gotta go to bed. I gotta be back.
He was just there. Why would you want to watch it?
Watch the news of where he was just at? What is this? What is happening?
And again, this is supposed to be when they're both normal people.
That character immediately gone. We never see her again after that scene.
Yeah, she's
never.
forgotten about. She's like,
She's
oh, hey,
gone.
here's this, like, rude bitch, and then, like, nothing else. And I was like, okay, I guess. And she's like, oh, your ex-wife called twice. Still don't know why either. Like, Nicole Kidman called twice, because that's his ex-wife.
Right. And then he calls her a couple of scenes later after he's been changed to try to get her to give him the son. So why was she calling him? It's a bad script, folks.
Bad script.
Yeah.
It's a bad script that doesn't really make sense under even a little bit of scrutiny.
Yeah, just a tiny bit.
Just a tiny bit of what's actually going on here. You find out nothing, really.
Yep. So let's find more things to talk about in this nothing of things. This movie sucks. Let me think. All right, so we've got that. We've got the patient. We've got the...
I have something.
Thank you.
That
I didn't want to
want
force
to
it.
talk about
Yeah,
is
fucking
the
content.
subway projectile vomiting scene.
Oh, yeah, that's pretty good.
Oh, that was kind of funny unintentionally, so...
Yeah, so Nicole Kidman is, like, on the run, and she gets in a subway train, and, like, all of the people in there are pretty much emotionless. Mm-hmm. And she's kind of freaking out. And one of the guys is like, don't show emotions. They won't be able to tell who's who.
Calm down. You can fool them if you stay calm and don't show emotion. Yeah, right.
Movies.
Of course.
Yeah. But of course, the moment the invaders show up, everyone loses their cool.
Well, no. The guy who tells her to be calm and emotionless, the woman that he's with, as soon as, like, the actual pod people walk into the train car, she gets up and she's like, what do you want from us, you bastards? Leave us alone! And, like, tries to push one. It's like, why does she have that outburst all of a sudden? She and this guy that she's with have obviously been, like... They've figured out how to be emotionless to hide. Why is she the one who breaks? It's even more confusing.
Sideways.
It's even more confusing because one of the other people in the car is a woman who has, like, a wound on her arm or something. She's, like, trying to stop the bleeding while also pretending to be emotionless. So, from a writing perspective, she's the one who makes the most sense to break.
Yeah.
Because she has, like, a wound that is, like, hurts her, that she is unable to remain emotionless. So it makes sense for her to be the one to give them away instead of one of the other people who just decides to give them away for no reason. Be like, leave us alone, you bastards! But it does lead to them being chased by a bunch of the pod people, firing perfect streams of projectile vomit at them.
Terrible practical effects.
I think it's pretty funny.
Clearly had a hose, like a little hose.
Yeah, exactly. Like fucking spitting cobras, just like shooting these little streams of like green vomit. Like, I will infect you.
Yeah. Not vomit at all. It's like super thin and
it's a thin stream, yeah.
Hilarious.
Yeah, it's like, you can do that so much easier with practical effects too, is just like, just with your creative cutting, just have the actors put some like soup in their mouth and put some food coloring in it to make it a
that's the
weird
thing.
color and just have them just fucking spray it. Like, you can make it look like they're actually vomiting shit so much easier than having, like, a little vomit hose, you know?
Yeah, well, the vomit hose, it seemed like it was practical. It was just bad practical.
Oh, no. Yes, I'm saying my point is that you can accomplish a better effect through practicals, through less complicated practicals even.
More practical means, not just practical in the sense of practical effects.
Yeah, like, it is done practically, which is honestly kind of surprising because there's a lot of bad CG in this movie.
Okay, well, yeah, so, like, what's the most fun practical thing about all the other movies, right? The transitions. The weird pod stuff with the feelers and the tendrils.
The last one that we talked about in particular, the Abel Ferrara one, had, like, with the transformation scenes. Yeah. Oh,
they were good.
I
think the 70s one is still the best with, like, the loft area that's all been overgrown.
I mean, the 70s one is the best overall, but especially in terms of, like, a showcase of practical effects with, like, the transformation scenes, like the 90s one, like, did that great. Shit in spades.
It's true, and, like, it did a great job, and it carried on the torch, you know?
Yeah.
And with this one, it just took the torch and it just dunked it in the toilet. And it said, hey, what if we did, like, this one thing that's, like, super easy to do, and we did it in CG for no reason? And so, like, the people are all covered in... It's just like they're covered in, like, a boring latexy, plasticky, skinny goo thing in their bed, but for whatever reason it has to be done with CG, and it's like, it's so easy to do practically.
That
like, why did you do that with CG?
Feels lazy. It's like they could have accomplished that with makeup for sure.
And it would have been, you could have touched it. It would have looked better.
Yeah, the first instance of it
you don't even need, like, a
was like so after weird. The Halloween scene, and, like, the kid had it on his hand.
Yeah,
and she pulled it off, and it almost looked like Elmer's glue, you know, when dry glue is, like, clear and, like...
But like CG.
Yeah, because it, like, moved around a little bit.
Well, yeah, and she takes that to Daniel Craig and his doctor buddy, played by Jeffrey Wright, who is...
kicks ass and...
Who I like as an actor. He is phoning the fuck out of this movie.
I don't
kind of underused in this movie.
I don't blame him. He doesn't have really anything to do, but they take it to him as, like...
He's science man.
Daniel Craig is like, oh yeah, well, it's Halloween, so they must have bought whatever that is at Walmart or something. Like, it's latex or fake skin or something. And Jeffrey Wright looks at it under a microscope, and Daniel Craig is like, well, it's manufactured, right? And Jeffrey Wright is like, well, maybe it's either a really good latex prosthetic or it's really cheap skin. And it's like, first of all, what the fuck does that mean? What is cheap skin? Like, human skin is something that is just skin is skin. Yeah. Like, what is cheap skin? Like,
I think you can buy cheap skin from Nightwalkers and certain...
Oh, yeah, there you go. Yeah. Ladies of the Night. That's the cheap skin.
Yeah, you're right. About. Like, you want to talk about things that don't hold up under... Not even like a microscope, but under, like, a children's magnifying glass.
It's like, what is
that
cheap
is the worst
skin?
line. The line is like, oh, he says the thing, but it's not the thing. It's like, oh yeah, it's either really expensive latex or it's really cheap skin, and it's like, what the fuck is cheap skin?
But they do that.
You guys don't understand. I molt like a snake, I just sell my skin for cheap.
Yeah, because once it's off me, I don't need it anymore.
Why do I need it?
It's like a sunburn.
I don't want just a person shaped.
But
it's
mold
that's called
hanging around,
and that's just called ashy. All right, you're ashy. All right, you're ashy, and you need to deal with it.
Damn, I need more lotion.
Yeah, you need to get some. You need to get some lotion and deal with that shit. All right, you ashy. All right, you're fucking ashy, and you need to deal with it. It's gross. All right, get some fucking lotion.
So they do that so they can set up that, like, part of the transformation process is the alien virus, like, recreates skin on top of your skin, as it's like, that's how it replaces you or whatever. And they do that so they can have the scene later where Nicole Kidman manages to escape the second train that we get, the second train sequence that we get in this movie, where she gets cornered in the bathroom by the little Asian boy who she throws into a bedpost later. Is pretty funny. And he's like,
comedically easy to take him out.
He's like, you can stop pretending and come at, like, we know that you're not one of us. And she's like, okay, fine. I'll do it, but at least let me lock myself in this bathroom so I can be alone while I transform.
Let me molt in private.
It's like, I don't want people to look at me, and it's like, okay, that's fine. So they let her lock herself in the bathroom, and right before that, she had like fallen asleep for just like a quick second because she is real tired. We didn't mention that her ex-husband, puked on her face earlier, so that's how she got infected. Whatever, it's not important. Who cares?
But Puke Gang.
Yeah,
like, that's the big thing.
Slime season.
They run around in groups.
Yeah, Puke Gang, slime season.
Puke on people.
Bullin' with the slimes. So like when she like almost falls asleep in the bathroom before, like when she snaps back awake, like she's got some of like the weird slimy fake skin on her, so she like wipes it off and throws it into the trash can. So the cheap skin. So after she convinces the little Asian boy to let her transform in peace,
you just said a little boy.
Whatever. She goes into the trash can and pulls all the pieces of skin out of the paper towels and sticks them on herself. So like when he comes back in later, she's like pulling them off of herself, like she's just got done molting. So she cleverly
pulls the fast one on.
Weasels her way out of that.
I like it too because he also says to her, my mommy and daddy didn't survive the process. I hate that. So that means you're gonna be my family now. Like as an alien.
Yeah, we're all one big family now. Well, and then she adopts him at the end after they cure it.
She actually does do that.
So he does join their family later, literally.
Yeah, and that's the biggest cop out of all, I think, is that like not only is there like a vaccine to prevent people who like haven't been turned yet, who haven't like
to immunize
their skin
people
and like had their brain, like haven't had their brains like completely hard rewired and stuff.
But they can also cure it.
But they can fucking cure it. And that's
which doesn't make any sense because the whole thing of the pod people is that it's replacement.
Yeah.
It's not, they're not like possessing you like a demon or something.
No.
They are copying you and replacing you, absorbing your memories and your thoughts and creating a copy that takes your place.
Yep.
But in this, it's just them rewriting the way their brains work, but then why do they have to put fake skin on top of the skin? Like, if it's it
doesn't hold up to just a moment's scrutiny.
It doesn't make any sense. If there is replacement taking place with, like, new skin being put on top of the old skin, then how is that something that's curable where they can turn you back to being human with chemtrails?
Who are, like, well into the process and like their entire body.
It's a whole thing. Like their whole body's covered in like the weird slime.
Not just covered, but like it's like deep in there because it's like really translucent and like you can see that like they're in, like it's not just their skin, like their organs and shit is all being like re-chemographied or whatever, making up a word. Like
what you would
you can't just like fucking spray like a vaccine on them and like suddenly they're okay.
It's building new alien tissue on top of as the old tissue underneath is being dissolved or consumed or whatever.
You don't even think about that's even worse is they don't actually show anyone being cured. They just are. We see the helicopters spray the stuff, and then it's like, oh, guess they're cured now.
Yeah, it is. It's I don't know if y'all ever saw the Brad Pitt World War Z movie, but it came out a couple years after this one, or within 5 years, and it does basically the exact same thing, where it's like there's the idea of a cure through the whole thing, and then a character manages to get to safety, and then they just jump forward in time and like, we have cured the virus, everyone is okay now. It's like they just It's like there's none of that in the actual movie.
Tell not show. Great, yeah.
In this movie,
Good,
literally,
good.
it's like, yeah, Jeffrey Wright somehow ends up in like a military helicopter, and why those soldiers aren't
There's a bit where
Oh
they
my
come on the
God.
phone.
Or
That pissed me the fuck off because they have the military guys come off of the helicopter and like shoot a bunch of rifles at like the opening where like a bunch of infected are coming up and trying to chase the helicopter.
Do they shoot it?
They don't shoot at all.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Like,
Yeah, and that's what pissed me off so much.
Yeah, to
is,
kind of
like,
frame
you
it.
set it up.
Yeah, to frame it for the listeners, like Nicole Kidman is like driving through the down the streets of DC. There's people piled up on top of her car. She's throwing them off of her car, and honestly, some of the stunts in that shot look pretty good. Like I was gonna say, that's like my one tiny bit of praise for this movie is like there's some good stunts leading up to that. Anyway, and they're flying around the helicopter, and there's like, you gotta get to the so-and-so parking garage. You're gonna get to the top of it. Like,
yeah,
oh
to the
my
very
God.
top, we'll come down and pick you up.
So cool. The big climax is she has to get to the top of a regular parking garage. Anyway, she finally does, and of course she's being chased by hordes of them the whole time. She's dragging her little son along, and she gets to the rooftop, the helicopter lands, and a bunch, like you were saying, Ben, a bunch of army dudes hop off of it with rifles, and you're like, yeah, it's the climax of the movie. Let's fucking go. Let's have her in a mad dash running to get to them as they're shooting the infected left and right. Let's get something, you know? At this point, anything. And instead, she runs past him, hops on the helicopter, and like, all right, let's go, and they just hop on the helicopter, and that's it. Roll fucking credits. Like, well, I mean, you know, not yet, but...
Well, no, not roll credits. Jump forward in time to, we easily found a vaccine in the little boy's blood, and we sprayed it all over the
Literally a magic
world
bullet. Yeah,
from
so
helicopters, and we stopped the alien virus invasion.
You
Good
know
job,
what?
team.
I think they didn't shoot the people is because the invaders aren't pod people replacing people, but it's just an
they're
infection.
quote-unquote
And
infected, so they didn't want
want
to kill
the
them.
military to be shooting civilians.
They didn't want to kill them because they were going to try to cure it.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. That's so fucking stupid.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so fucking dumb. You're right.
Yeah, because this is 2007. This is still
Gotta make the military look cool.
military woo-ha
Yeah.
America.
Yeah, they don't lean too heavily in on the military aspects of it, but it very much does feel like, well, we're in a post 9/11 America. We have to have America be the heroes who save the day and discover the vaccine and save the world and plunge the entire rest of the world back into the conflicts that the American government is directly responsible for starting in the first place, because that's how we know that we're human, folks. That's how we know that we're human. Like, yeah, we maintain our sense of individuality, but we're still killing each other because none of us can agree, but that's what makes us who we are.
Are we really human if the American empire has collapsed?
Yeah,
No.
it's such a fucking frustrating cop-out that makes perfect sense for when the movie came out. Is it like, yeah, we gotta have America save the day, you know? It can't have the kind of bleak nihilistic ending that this story always has, where it is too late. The invasion has succeeded.
Yeah.
At this point, it's just weeding out the last few people who, you know, have not been turned.
Let's rate, and
Let's just fucking rate.
I have a creative exercise for us.
Sure,
after we-
but yeah, let's get the rating out of the way first. Man, honestly, I was pretty offended by this movie. To be real, I thought it was pretty insulting from a lot of perspectives of just like people who appreciate the invasion of the Body Snatchers story, people who appreciate film, people who appreciate Nicole Kidman. I thought it was fucking trash from like top to bottom. Very few redeemable qualities at all. Is it a miserable watch? No, I guess not, but it's not a good time. I'm gonna give it a 1.5 out of 5.
Yeah, Heartbreak doesn't feel good in a place like this.
Nicole.
This was a dumpster fire. This is a 1.5 for me as well.
Yeah, I just did all that. tired. Tired and bummed out.
All right. Well, yeah, that'll give The Invasion an average of 1.5 out of 5 pods. You know, and we talked about this a little bit before the show. We have 4 film adaptations of the same story of the novel by Jack Finney, and 3 out of 4 being good. I'll take it.
Even the 90s one was all right.
Yeah. The 90s one was good, not great.
That's a good segue into the thought exercise. So you're a producer. You have whatever budget you want.
Okay.
But you have to produce a new Invasion of the Body Snatchers movie within the next year or 2. Who do you pick to direct it, and who do you pick to star?
I want to get the Wachowskis to do it with the digital double of Bruce Willis.
Oh, no, let Bruce rest, please.
No, did you hear? Did you
Yes,
hear? Yeah.
he sold his rights.
He sold his likeness.
Digital likeness, yeah. So now, like, any studio can just have a digital twin of Bruce Willis in their movie.
Who let that happen?
Bruce Willis.
Yeah,
But he's not all there.
but he's like
His estate, his family.
He has Alzheimer's.
I'm just shrugging right now. Like, I don't know what to tell you.
Somebody let him sell his likeness. That's genuinely heartbreaking. That makes me feel
Heartbreak
really,
doesn't feel good.
That makes me feel really bad, actually.
Yeah, get fucked. We're gonna see Bruce Willis forever now in movies.
No, Bruce.
Yeah,
like what
we can't just say, "Hey, remember Die Hard?" Wasn't it good?
What they've been doing to him over the last few years, like as his like mental state has been declining, is like already like really grotesque. And man, that's just the icing on the cake, isn't it? Ugh, gross.
Bummer. I'm sorry to bum you out even more at this week.
Okay.
This time of week.
Well, I'll try to make myself not think about that by answering Ben's question. I can't say that I have like a super concrete answer, because I think there's a lot of different ways that you can take it, but I think it depends on what kind of tone you're wanting to tell this story. Yeah, I think if you're going for like the standard like horror thriller tone of this story, I think somebody like Dan Trachtenberg would be really solid for it, because I think he's a good director, and he's and importantly he's a good director with actors, and I think that the crux of a movie like this is good characters and good actors. So I think that he could do a good serious adaptation. That being said, I think that to do a 5th adaptation of this and take it from maybe a slightly more comedic standpoint, but still like have integrity as a horror film, honestly, I think somebody like Jordan Peele could do a really good adaptation of this.
He kind of already
story.
did with Us.
Kind of.
Yeah.
Us is kind of movie, yeah. No, you're definitely right. Maybe that's why I'm thinking about it.
Here's what I want. Earnestly, since my first answer was a joke one.
I have one too. But go first.
Sure thing. Yeah, I mean it was your thing, so you should finish it off. But I think that Hereditary is about your family not being your family, and I think that Midsommar is about being taken into an outside familial collective.
Finding a new family.
I think Ari Aster would do a very good job.
I think Ari Aster could do good at this.
Yeah, and I think that, while we're at it, let's just go ahead and... what's her name? From Midsommar and from...
Florence Pugh?
Florence Pugh would do a great job.
Put her in it?
Yeah, throw her in there. But no, actually, I want Sam Neill. Sam Neill's great, and he was also already kind of tangentially in a Pod People movie with Possession. So there's a good lineage there.
Yeah, I can never say no to Sam Neill. I'll take him anytime.
Yeah.
Ben?
So the whole crux of a Pod People movie is deadpan Pod People. You know, they're human, but they're not really human.
Emotionless replacements.
What if everyone in this world was that? For example, in a Yorgos Lanthimos movie, everyone is already deadpan.
You're thinking of like Killing of a Sacred Deer or something like that.
Everyone is already super deadpan and flat in their delivery.
And Nicole Kidman was in Killing of a Sacred Deer.
So I think a structure like that could work really well.
Man, Killing of a Sacred Deer is basically already Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Like the way that those characters behave. Like, it's not Invasion of the Body Snatchers at all, but like, talk about simulacra of humanity. Like, there's characters in that movie.
But it's like that almost human thing, right?
Oh, yeah, I agree with you.
You could nail it.
I agree with you.
In terms of actors, like, I don't know, man. Like, Colin Farrell could do it really well.
You just want Killing of a Sacred Deer again.
Yeah,
is what you're
totally
saying.
valid, yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure there's others, but I can't think of any deadpan actors.
But you're thinking of Colin Farrell and Nicole Kidman and Yorgos Lanthimos.
Nathan Fielder, yeah. Let's just put him in a serious acting role.
Yeah, it's time.
Yeah,
he could do
might
it
as well.
Yeah.
You
know, he's another comedic creator who I think has the right sensibilities to do horror. You know, like we were talking about recently on our Barbarian episode.
Isn't he doing something like that with like Margot Robbie or something?
He does have like some HBO show coming. It's not with Margot Robbie. It's with Emma Stone and somebody else.
And the Safdie brothers.
And the Safdie brothers, yeah, or one of them. I don't know if it's both of them, but at least Benny Safdie, yeah.
Invasion movie.
Yeah,
they are very fucking indebted to fucking Abel Ferrara. So
see, I didn't give my my cast for my movie, but now I'm thinking, okay, let's actually do a Safdie brothers directed with reuniting Robert Pattinson and Kristen Stewart for the first time since Twilight, Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Okay, I can see it. Yeah. I mean, Kristen Stewart does have that very.
I think she would be great in the Body Snatchers.
I think she could do really well.
I think she would be
Natalie
great in Body
Portman
Snatchers.
Has a very flat delivery.
Did you like
Annihilation?
Yeah.
Also kind of a movie about being... Well, no, it is a movie about being
What we're really learning through this exercise is we're just naming existing movies that we like already. It's basically what's happening.
Yeah, we want to see more of that.
All right, well, next week's... Oh, shit, what is next week's episode? Oh, Christ. Halloween Ends is next.
No. Okay.
Halloween Ends is next, and all I gotta say about that for the time being is Halloween ends. I sure hope it does.
Evil dies tonight.
Oh,
Evil dies tonight.
Evil dies for real this time. God, I fucking hope so. Well, we're fully in spooky season, so join us next week for our review of Halloween Ends.
Hopefully it will be the end of Halloween.
Sponsor time.
Who's the sponsor?
John Wick, if he could hoop.
Damn!
Yeah.
Man, ball is life, though.
Ball is life. And if it's John Wick, ball is death.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Think about it.
Now that's an idea for a film.
Come on and slam. And welcome to the John Wick Jam.
John Wick, ball is dead. The only way to defeat the high table once and for all is to cross them up and break their ankles. Well, that'll do us for this week. That'll do it, and that'll do us.
Happy 5th.
Happy 5th Podiversary, boys, and thank you to everybody who listens to the show, who has been listening for a while, or if you're new, we got 5 years worth of backlog. If that's the case, you can check out all of those old episodes. There's a lot of good shit in there. If you want to support us, the easiest way to do so is to leave us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to your podcasts. You can also support us on Patreon at patreon.com/podpeoplepod. Shout out to our honorary pod boys, Sam Simon and Zach Confer. Y'all are amazing and the best, as always. You can follow us on Twitter at podpeoplepod and at letterboxd.com/podpeoplepod, where you'll find a list of all the films we've talked about on the show with our average ratings and links to those reviews. I'm on Twitter at SomeSpookySnake, and also twitch.tv/SomeSpookySnake. There's probably a Spooky Saturday happening soon. Maybe this weekend. Who knows when you're listening to this. But that's where you can find me.
In the future or in the past.
Ooh.
You can follow me on Twitter at Mr. Sheets.
And if it's still October...
It is.
This is airing. Wow. It's October. That's so exciting. It's a spooky month. Go check out The Mortuary Assistant. They added clowns. And it's awful. It's really fucked up. If you have calorophobia, I think.
Calorophobia.
Clownophobia.
Yeah, if you hear a honk and you see a powdery face and that makes you frightened, go play The Mortuary Assistant. Honestly, even if it doesn't, that one probably will. It's a rough. It's like, because you're working on dead bodies and it's like a clown corpse.
But now with clowns.
And I'm not a big fan. Anyway, yeah, it's really good.
I'm not a big fan, but check it out.
Check it out. Well, no, I mean, I am a big fan. It's scary. And that's good. Yeah, go check that out. Also, I can finally announce that I'm working on a fucking Creepshow game, which is fucking awesome. Yeah. So I can finally talk about that. So get hyped for that and stay tuned. It's going to be a while. I think we're slated for 2024. But yeah, DreadXP is working on a fucking Creepshow game, and I'm working on it. It's fucking awesome, and I'm fucking excited about it. So get hyped for that.
Go back and listen to our episode on Creepshow. That was just me and Ben. Cleveland wasn't there for that one.
I wasn't there for that one, but you should definitely listen to it and go watch it. And yeah, Creepshow fucking slaps.
It's gonna be a fucking banger if it's even anything like the Dread Collection games.
Oh, it's gonna be.
It's gonna be even better. I mean, honestly,
considering the budget, it fucking better be.
And the people working on it, yeah.
Oh yeah, we've got a fucking slam dunk of a group working on it. But go look into it yourself.
Yeah,
go. Yeah, that's I've done enough talking about me. What about you, listener?
Well, thank you, dear listener, once again for helping make our fifth year Podiversary special.
Help make our fit.
Help him.
Our fit.
This movie has broken.
Here's to more.
Snake life. 800 castles in Mali. Just be very still. I ain't gonna hurt anybody. Hell no, I ain't 12, but if I like it, I cop it. I met Poppy and he say he good at uploading wallets. Kept me rhyme with the signs, them my youngest. Kept me bullying with the signs, and them my youngest. I be sliming with them signs, and them my youngest. Kept me sliding with them signs, and them my youngest. Hey. Prison kind of bells inside my baby pampers ill. I get out to work and let the J snap the scale. My bitch ride slow with the A like she get L's. I wear that white, I cook that white, but I am not no shell. Add a little soda, put the tan on it. I got the shit for the Ella on my shoulder, want it. I drink more mud than the pig, I think pork want me. And the front of the Maji look like a fork, don't it? Let it breathe. I'm not no rap, but young thugger be chasing cheese. I want the M's and I'm not talking Mickey D. My jury go like the tokens at Chuck E. Cheese. Oh, English, 800 castles in Mali. Just be very still, I ain't gonna hurt anybody. Hell no, I ain't 12, but if I like it, I cop it. I met Poppy and he say he good at uploading wallets. Kept me rhyme with the signs, them my youngest. Kept me fooling with the signs, and them my youngest. I be sliming with the signs, and them my youngest. With my youngest.